Hello there everyone, welcome to the channel if you're new, welcome back if you aren't. It's me, Edwin de Jesus, EDJ, and we're going to be continuing with Epic History's Russian series. So I liked the first part, it basically gave a brief rundown of, Russia, its growth, Ivan the Terrible, Mongol invasion, back when they were known as the Kievan Rus? Sorry, I'm not good with pronouncing much. And thus we left off, it's kind of they started beefing with Poland, so I'm really excited to see if there's a rivalry between Russia and Poland, because Poland is something we've seen a lot mentioned on this channel, but it's usually Poland when it's either A, not a country anymore, or B, getting invaded by other powers. So yeah, overall I'm interested to see more about that. And yeah, it seems like he's giving a brief overview, because last video we covered so much of Russian history very quickly. So these seems like brief overviews of, I guess what happened. And I'm really looking forward to just kind of, doing my own personal research off screen, which I really do like doing. And yeah, I'm really excited to see how becomes Russia rises to prominence and becomes the European superpower that we all know it. Well, here it just says power, but, one of the most powerful nations on Europe. So, yeah, I don't really have much else to add other than we should probably get right into it, huh? So, without any further ado, let's watch the history of Russia, Part 2, The Birth of a European Power.
In 1612, Russia was in a state of anarchy. They called it the Time of Troubles. The people were terrorized by war, famine, and plague. Up to a third of them perished. Foreign troops occupied Moscow, Smolensk, and Novgorod. But then, Russia fought back. Prince Pozharsky and a merchant, Kuzma Minin, led the Russian militia to Moscow and threw out the Polish garrison. Since 2005...
Yes, so that's something else. I mentioned that most powers that have tried to invade Russia, have actually, famously failed, from Napoleon to Hitler, and, even Sweden. All failed, but the Mongols managed to take a young Russia, a smaller one, but they still did it, and in winter too. And next is the Polish kind of did it as well, even occupying the Moscow. So obviously two have pulled off the victory, right, of actually invading Russia, which is impressive, because many powers afterwards just couldn't do it. So yeah.
This event has been commemorated every 4th of November as Russian National Unity Day.
Sorry, I'm just admiring the city. I was actually looking at images of Moscow earlier because I was interested in seeing, the city. It is beautiful. Man, I was just wait, let me pull up some pics. Yeah, so I was just kind of on my own time researching and kind of looking at images of famous cities. And since Moscow's come up quite a bit in this channel, I did, and I just love... I don't know, I just love these photos. I'm hoping they're current, at least most of them, but what I've really captured my eye is I don't know, at least some of the famous sightings, right? This architecture and the colors is just I don't know, it just really captures the eye, And it's really cool that when you learning about history, just how some places from thousands of years back are just still around and just vibing. Like, I don't know, it's like just a very cool, interesting thing I really like. The Romanovs.
The Russian assembly, the Zemsky Sabor, realized the country had to unite behind a new ruler and elected a 16-year-old noble, Mikhail Romanov, as the next Tsar. His dynasty would rule Russia for the next 300 years. Tsar Mikhail exchanged territory for peace, winning Russia much-needed breathing space. His son, Tsar Alexei, implemented a new legal code, the Sabornoye Uluzhenie. It turned all Russian peasants, 80% of the population, into serfs, effectively slaves, their status inherited by their children and with no freedom to travel or choose their master. It was a system that dominated Russian rural life for the next 200 years.
Yeah, serfdom didn't go away till a while. I do know about this. Obviously, the Romanov family, you know, very famous. Yeah, super famous house. You know, even the last Tsar of Russia, Nicholas, was a Romanov. So obviously, 300 years of ruling, very great, very good, in the grand scheme of things. And we know about, you know, serfdom, which didn't go away until, like, you know, a little bit before the start of World War One. I think it was, what was it? Yeah, it was Tsar Alexander II who abolished serfdom. And, you know, like, it was near, at least closer to World War One, you know, and I do remember learning a lot about that aspect of serfdom. It stuck around for a bit, you know, and yeah.
The head of the Russian Orthodox Church, Patriarch Nikon, imposed religious reforms that split the church between reformers and old believers. It's a schism that continues to this day. Ukrainian Cossacks, rebelling against the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, recognized Tsar Alexei as overlord in exchange for his military support. It led to the 13 Years' War between Russia and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. Russia emerged victorious, reclaiming Smolensk and taking control of eastern Ukraine. A revolt against Tsarist government, led by a renegade Cossack, Stenka Razin, brought anarchy to southern Russia. It was finally suppressed. Razin was brought to Moscow and executed by quartering. The sickly but highly educated Fyodor III passed many reforms. He abolished Mesnichestva, the system that had awarded government posts according to nobility rather than merit, and symbolically burned the ancient books of rank.
I really love that. I love when leaders, you know, get rid of, like, nepotism. It's something I kind of liked about Napoleon, but even he eventually, you know, he gave into nepotism, which is something I always kind of criticize him for, or, like, don't agree with him, but yeah, I just like that, because it's like, if you're a ruler, yeah, you want, like, people around you who earn their position through merit, who show they are skilled, not because they just happen to have a powerful name behind them, you know? Like, I just like that, you know? Earn your position through your skill, and, like, that always wins my heart. So, I already love this. That's something I agree with, you know? Letting people rise up, you know, through earning it, right? That's just me, though. I just, like, hate nepotism and people who get by just cause they have a powerful name or family or whatever, you know.
But Fyodor died aged just 19. His sister Sophia became Princess Regent, ruling on behalf of her younger brothers, the joint Tsars Ivan V and Peter I. After centuries of conflict, Russia and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth signed a Treaty of Eternal Peace. Russia then joined the Holy League in its war against the Ottoman Empire. Sophia's reign also saw the first treaty between Russia and China, establishing the frontier between the two states.
Wow. That's cool to see, you know, that even a European power was already interacting with China, because, you know, China's kind of like removed from the European scene, so it's kind of cool that contact goes back that far, you know, and yeah.
At age 17, Peter I seized power from his half-sister Sophia. Peter became the first Russian ruler to travel abroad. He toured Europe with his Grand Embassy, seeking allies for Russia's war against Turkey, and learning the latest developments in science and shipbuilding. The war against Turkey was successfully concluded by the Treaty of Constantinople. Russia gained Azov from Turkey's ally, the Crimean Khanate, and with it, a foothold on the Black Sea. Peter made many reforms, seeking to turn Russia into a modern European state. He demanded Russian nobles dress and behave like Europeans. He made those who refused to shave pay a beard tax. Peter built the first Russian navy, reformed the army and government, and promoted industry, trade, and education. In the Great Northern War, Russia, Poland, Lithuania, and Denmark took on the dominant power in the Baltic, Sweden. The war began badly for Russia with a disastrous defeat to Charles XII of Sweden at Narva. But Russia won a second Battle of Narva, before crushing Charles XII's army at the Battle of Poltava. On the Baltic coast, Peter completed construction of a new capital, St. Petersburg. The build.
Yeah, it's cool to see, like, just the origins of so many things that I'm familiar with Russia. Like, it's really cool to see that. And I do admire, you know, obviously you don't get the name the Great unless you actually do something great. And I've heard of Peter the Great. I never looked too deep into him, that's why I haven't said much. And I'm just kind of learning right now, but yeah, obviously I like that, you know, elevating Russia to the level of the rest of the powers kind of show, you know, like we're more than equal with the rest of Europe, and obviously a force to be reckoned with on its own. And yeah, it's been cool seeing, you know, just how much Sweden and Russia have been fighting, and you know, the building of the navy, and even with the Ottomans, like I mentioned before, like how Russia and, you know, the Ottomans kind of fought, and it was mentioned in the background of many Napoleon videos that even Russia and the Ottomans were fighting. There's not much videos on that conflict on YouTube, but it is cool seeing some of these, like, centuries-long conflict, right? These many years of conflict, and just, you know, I don't know, I just find that all interesting.
Building of what would become Russia's second largest city among coastal marshes was a remarkable achievement, though it cost the lives of many thousands of serfs. The Great Northern War ended with the Treaty of Neustadt. Russia's gains at Sweden's expense made it the new dominant Baltic power. 4 years before his death, Peter was declared Peter the Great, father of his country, emperor of all the Russias.
The 4 empresses.
Peter was succeeded by his wife Catherine, then his grandson Peter II, who died of smallpox, aged just 14. Empress Anna Ivanovna, daughter of Peter the Great's half-brother Ivan V, was famed for her decadence and the influence of her German lover Ernst Biron. During Anna's reign, Vitus Bering, a Danish explorer in Russian service, led the first expedition to chart the coast of Alaska. He also discovered the Aleutian Islands, and later gave his name to the sea that separates Russia and America. After Anna's death, her infant grandnephew Ivan VI was deposed by Peter the Great's daughter Elizabeth. Ivan VI spent his entire life in captivity. Until age 23, he was murdered by his guards during a failed rescue attempt. Elizabeth, meanwhile, was famed for her vanity, extravagance, and many young lovers. But she was also capable of decisive leadership. In alliance with France and Austria, Elizabeth led Russia.
Yes, the 7 Years' War. I know about that. Oh man, it's cool. It's gonna be cool to see Russia's involvement with this, one of the most famous wars ever. I remember we did cover, a bit of it in like a long time ago, guys. This is a bit back, like even before high school. I think even a little bit before middle school. Like, wait. Yeah, I remember hearing about this like in 5th grade, which is like insane. But yeah, usually when it comes to this conflict, usually the main focus, at least I find that most people talk about, is mainly just France and Britain. But obviously this was such a bigger conflict, with so many participants. And it'll be interesting to see what Russia's involvement was, and it's kind of cool seeing that there were female rulers. Like usually, throughout most of history, female rulers aren't the norm or even the majority. Like it's always men. And so it's interesting to see that Russia had this, and I'm waiting till they get to Catherine the Great, who is another person who I am very heard a lot about. Also, there's like a show called The Great. It's about Catherine the Great, but it's not, I don't think it's historically accurate. It's kind of meant to be, there's a lot of comedy, I'll say, but obviously that's just another aspect, I'd recommend it. I think it's fun, but I wouldn't call it the most historically accurate thing ever, but I don't know. Point is, let's get back to this.
Into the 7 Years' War against Frederick the Great of Prussia. The Russian army inflicted a crushing defeat on Frederick at the Battle of Kunersdorf, but failed to exploit its victory. Meanwhile, in St. Petersburg...
Which is really interesting, because Frederick the Great seems to have been like the big guy, the big name before Napoleon, at least from what I've heard. Even Napoleon gave Frederick props, such as, oh, if he were here today, I wouldn't be in Germany, I think Napoleon essentially said something like that when he went to Berlin. So obviously Napoleon had some respect for him. And we were going to cover Frederick the Great. I put a video series of his on a poll, though we never got to it, because other series won the vote. But it's kind of interesting to see, Russia defeated a pretty important name like that, so that's obviously beyond impressive.
The Winter Palace was completed at vast expense. It would remain the monarch's official residence right up until the Russian Revolution of 1917. Peter III was Peter the Great's grandson by his elder daughter Anna Petrovna, who died as a consequence of childbirth. Raised in Denmark, Peter spoke hardly any Russian, and greatly admired Russia's enemy, Frederick the Great. So he had Russia swap sides in the 7 Years' War, saving Frederick from almost certain defeat.
Wow.
Peter's actions angered many army officers, and he'd always been despised by his German wife, Catherine.
Yeah. I could definitely, I think I'd be upset at that too, because it seemed like Russia had the advantage over Frederick there. So, yeah, it's like almost switching, like when you're winning, right? At least it comes across that they were winning. I'm sure there's more to it than the video is showing, but yeah, this is super interesting. Oh, Peter.
Together, they deposed Peter III, who died a week later in suspicious circumstances.
Murdered.
His wife, Catherine, became Empress of Russia. Her reign would be remembered as one of Russia's most glorious. Epic History TV depends...
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing Catherine the Great, who is someone else I do know of. So I'm really looking forward to seeing some coverage on that reign, you know. And yeah, another very interesting, illuminating video. Obviously, we covered a lot. I think some of these events could warrant their own series or like their own in-depth video, but obviously this seems more like an overview, like I mentioned earlier. And yeah, it's just really cool, like learning more about this, like Russia's involvement with the 7 Years' War, some of its more international conflicts, and yeah, so like it's interesting seeing some of its like international rivalries and, you know, diplomatic affairs such as with China, the Ottoman Empire, and its place in European, you know, the sphere of influence, you know, dealing with Sweden and Poland. It's cool seeing some of the reigns such as, I'm sorry, I just like ran somewhere right now. You know, essentially seeing Peter the Great, some of the powers, the female rulers, which is a very unique thing. It's cool seeing the, you know, origins of place such as St. Petersburg and, you know, the rise of Russia just as a power on its own. I just think there's just so much, you know, we covered and I really liked for the most part. And yeah, overall, just another really great video by Epic History, and I'm looking forward to seeing the next one next time. So until then, I'll see you all. Bye, everyone.